heart of the desert, just 40 minutes from Las Vegas, lies a hidden canyon tucked quietly into the rugged landscape. This is Cathedral Canyon, a place born from one man's dream and steeped in the legends of an infamous outlaw. Cathedral Canyon was designed as a sanctuary, a space for art, reflection, and spiritual intention. Today, the canyon stands in ruins, but back in the 1980s, it was an art installation. It had electricity, running water from a nearby spring along the old Spanish Trail, and even 2 bathrooms carved into the soft rock walls. A continuous waterfall flowed into a pool, and music played through speakers whenever the switch on the nearby telephone pole was switched on. But who was Roland Wiley, and why would he spend 4 decades and thousands of dollars building this place? Roland Henry Wiley was a pioneering lawyer whose life was closely tied to the early growth of Las Vegas and Clark County. Born in 1904 in Aviga, Iowa, he grew up on a farm before his family moved to Wisconsin. After finishing school, Wiley earned his law degree from George Washington University in 1927. Soon after, he headed west, a move that would change his life. In 1929, Wiley arrived in Las Vegas, then little more than a dusty desert town, and opened a law practice, becoming one of the city's earliest attorneys. Wiley quickly stepped into public life. In the late 1930s, he was elected district attorney of Clark County, serving during a time of rapid transformation. His term coincided with the rise of military training facilities and the very beginnings of Las Vegas's gaming industry. Wiley played a key role in approving early gambling licenses, decisions that helped shape what would eventually become the Las Vegas Strip. One of the most notable outcomes was the opening of the El Rancho Casino in 1941, one of the few casinos at the time that was legitimately owned and financed outside of the mob control. Though well respected, Wiley aimed higher. He ran for governor of Nevada twice, in 1942 and again in 1950, but was unsuccessful in both campaigns. Wiley was an ambitious individual who sought public recognition and career success. So what led him to build Cathedral Canyon? Sometime in the 1930s, while the mob began establishing themselves in casinos around Las Vegas, Roland Wiley began purchasing property around Pahrump, including a large ranch where Cathedral Canyon is located. Roland Wiley spent more time on the ranch, eventually moving his family from Las Vegas to raise cattle, horses, pheasants for hunting, and melons, which he sold to the markets in Las Vegas up until the late 1960s. During the 40s, before a road was built through the Spring Mountains, Wiley had to take a plane to get to his property from Las Vegas, so he constructed a short airstrip for his plane. This airstrip can still be seen today from Queho's gravesite. We'll get to this in a minute. Sometime in the early 1950s, Wiley would come down with what they would call rabbit fever. Tularemia was a bacterial disease that he contacted most likely from the combination of the dusty climate and the often stagnant water around the springs from the old Spanish Trail that ran through Wiley's property. Roland became deathly ill and had visions from the unworldly.
I saw and I heard about 10 or 12 women. They were all dressed alike, looked somewhat alike, and they each played a stringed instrument. And they were singing and playing in such harmony. I never heard anything like it on earth.
After these visions, Wiley employed construction crews and spent hours and thousands of dollars over 4 decades installing concrete stairs, scriptural exhibits, a suspended bridge so that one could walk over the canyon, a Christ of the Andes based on the Rio de Janeiro landmark, stained glass windows that lit from the inside and glowed during the night, and a full water feature with a waterfall, stream, and reflection pool. The lighted pathways, benches, and artistic niches, scriptures, poetry, and ambience made Cathedral Canyon more than just a landmark. It became Wiley's gift to the public, free for any visitor to experience, not just physically, but spiritually.
When the music is on, tears in their eye. It moves people, this canyon does. You got to read and think about what's in the canyon. The quotations here. Something for everybody to improve their life, everyone.
According to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, at its peak, thousands came to marvel. It was a canyon-turned-cathedral under open skies, welcoming all who sought peace, wonder, or simply something out of the ordinary. The canyon was built for sound, drawing church services within its walls. Oral history also talks about meditational practices being held here from all practices, as well as baptisms in the pool beneath the Sermon on the Mount mural that can still be seen today. But Cathedral Canyon's history isn't only about one man's dream. It's also tied to one of Nevada's most controversial figures, Queho. Referred to in the early 20th century accounts as Nevada's last renegade Indian, Queho became legendary, accused of dozens of murders and blamed for crimes across southern Nevada. Born around 1880 and ostracized from much of society, Queho's life becomes a mixture of fact and folklore. Whether villain or scapegoat, his name was whispered across the desert surrounding Clark County. Queho was an outcast from the start due to his shameful mixed blood. According to this, the boy was born with a club foot, which further caused the local tribes to reject him. Raised on a reservation in Las Vegas, he worked from an early age as a ranch laborer and wood gatherer in several of the nearby mining camps. Always known to be sullen, moody, and quick-tempered, it was no surprise when he began to have trouble with the law. In some stories, though unconfirmed, they tell Queho of being involved in the death of another Indian in 1897, but newspaper accounts of his exploits did not begin until November 1910. The first report tells of Queho being a main suspect in the slaying of another Indian during a brawl on the Las Vegas reservation. Allegedly, he and another man named Harry Bismarck were drinking when the dispute began. Queho went on the run and, according to some accounts, murdered 2 Paiute Indians when he stole their horses in his escape. On his flight, he stopped for supplies in Las Vegas and was confronted by a shopkeeper, which resulted in Queho breaking both the man's arms and fracturing his skull with a pick sandal. Fleeing south to Nelson, he took shelter in El Dorado Canyon. Before long, word came around from a nearby town of Searchlight that Queho had beaten to death a woodcutter named J.M. Woodworth. According to this tale, he had beaten the man with a piece of timber after Woodworth refused to pay him after helping him cut timber. Deputy Sheriff Howe from Las Vegas formed a posse, and the group first went to the scene of Woodworth's killing, where they found a distinctive print left by Queho's club foot. From there, they tracked the fugitive to El Dorado Canyon, where they led to the Gold Bug Mines. There, they discovered the body of the watchman, L.W. Doc Gilbert. He had been shot in the back, and his special deputy badge, number 896, was missing. The search continued all the way to Colorado River, but the trail went cold. Despite combing more than 200 miles from Crescent to Nipton, lawmen found nothing except faint footprints. Over the next several years, Queho sightings continued, and his legend grew. Up and down the length of the Colorado River, miners, settlers told of missing cattle, unexplained thefts, and mysterious murders. All were attributed to the phantom renegade Indian, which was a constant source of embarrassment to the local lawmen. Sometime later, 2 more miners working claims at Jenny Springs were found shot in the back and robbed of their supplies. Those murders were also blamed on the notorious outlaw. Not long after this, the death of an Indian woman was likewise attributed to the renegade. As hysteria grew, rewards of up to $2,000 were offered for his capture, dead or alive. The Searchlight Bulletin fanned the flames, loudly reminding readers of the bounty while declaring a good Indian is a dead Indian. In 1919, the murderous tales would begin again when 2 prospectors named William Hancock and Eder Taylor were found dead upstream from El Dorado Canyon. Both had been shot in the back, and Taylor's head had been smashed in with an axe handle. He was immediately the prime suspect, with his supplies missing and Queho's footprints allegedly being found at the site. The reward for Queho's capture was increased to $3,000, and Southern Nevada Sheriff Sam Gay ordered Deputy Frank Waite to round up a posse and hire the best trackers to kill or capture Queho once and for all. Though they tracked the outlaw north to Las Vegas Wash, they soon lost his trail onto the Muddy Mountains. Gathering up more men, Wade split the group into two parties who continued to search. The manhunt lasted almost 2 months despite freezing rain and snow. Though they didn't find Queho, the lawmen did find the skeletons of 2 miners that had disappeared several years before. Though there was no proof whatsoever, Queho took the blame for these murders as well. As the legend was finally beginning to die, 3 prospectors by the names of Charles Kenyon and 2 brothers, Art and Schroeder, found the remains of the dead Indian on February 18, 1940. High in a cave on the side of Black Canyon, the mummified body was found along with a Winchester .30-30 rifle, clothing, cooking utensils, tools, and a special deputy badge that was numbered 896. Queho's remains were taken to Palm Funeral Home in Las Vegas, and Charles Kenyon, who had first found the body, demanded the reward. However, when the rewards offered more than a decade earlier were ignored, Kenyon demanded that the body be turned over to him. When he threatened to sell it to the Las Vegas Elks Club for expedition purposes, a court order was issued to prevent him from doing so. In the meantime, several Indians came forward claiming to be Queho's heirs. As the corpse lay in a storage in a funeral home, charges were accumulating. The facility was demanding that the body be moved and that the bill be paid. Ironically, Kenyon and those claiming to be heirs disappeared, and the judge ruled that the funeral home had all rights to the body. All this haggling had taken years, and the funeral home issued an ultimatum that if the body weren't retrieved and the charges paid, they would cremate the corpse and scatter the ashes across the desert. Queho's old nemesis Frank Waite paid the bill and gave the remains and artifacts to the Las Vegas Elks Club, which produced what was then the city's biggest public celebration, El Dorado. The club then built a glassed-in case and created a cave to exhibit the body and artifacts at El Dorado Village in Las Vegas. The Indians' remains stayed on public display until the early 1950s, and on at least one occasion, they even rode in one of the famous Las Vegas El Dorado parades. When the Elks Club no longer wanted responsibility for Queho's remains, they passed through several private hands before landing at the Museum of Natural History at the University of Nevada, where they remained until the mid-1970s. Roland Wiley purchased the remains from the museum, and on November 6, 1975, Queho was finally laid to rest, his bones cemented into a block memorial that would look over the valley on top of Cathedral Canyon. A small ceremony on Wiley's Pahrump Valley Ranch took place and was even attended by Frank Waite, who told the local press that he was relieved that his old adversary had finally been given a proper burial. During his lifetime, Queho was credited with the deaths of 23 people and was declared Nevada's public enemy number 1, and was the state's first mass murderer. While many believe that the Indian was little more than a brutish killer, others see him as an abused man who was hounded his entire life and blamed for dozens of atrocities that he did not commit. The truth remains a mystery. Cathedral Canyon stands now more as a memory than a destination. Its art faded, its paths worn, but its stories still echo in the silence of the desert. Though Wiley's remains are in Las Vegas, his spirit remains here. It is in this canyon that the dreams of Roland Wiley and the legend of Queho rest together, a testament to the layered, sometimes mysterious history of this rugged land.